Welcome to Run Radio's Writing Room. My first guest, Michelle Cramer. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you.
This time you're talking about a book you have written and published and you're promoting. And I'm really excited to talk about this because it's a really important topic.
I agree. I'm very passionate about it.
Yes, you've got a lot of experience, firsthand, secondhand. The name of your book is Unshattered Grief, Helping Others Through Loss. And if you'll just tell me a little bit about how much you had to personally feel like you had to dig back for research or how much just flowed right out of you and onto the pages.
Um, Gosh, it was such a combination of both, but it was a 5-year process for me. It really just, I did it in a very unconventional way. I mean, most of the time when you write a book, it's something that you plan out and you strategize and you make an outline and you have an idea. And that's a little more apparent with like a fiction book. With a nonfiction, it can be a little flexible, but it was like crazy flexible for me. I basically just, when something would occur to me or I would observe something that just like really impacted me, I would just write it down. And eventually, all these little pieces came together as one piece. And I guess maybe just a little bit more about what it even covers. So I have been working in bereavement photography for 15 years. And 9 years ago started my own nonprofit organization that works in that same sector. We work with medically fragile children and do pictures for those families, all the way to like birth loss photography or like those premature births, the NICU stays, those things. And so over that time period, I've done and seen so many like families lose their children. And just like walked, we have like a large support arm to that organization. I'm certified as a grief recovery method specialist. And so I walk these journeys with all of these families. And that's just kind of where it came out of, is like there would be these moments where they would come to me and they would be like, this is what happened. I'm really suffering. I don't know how to deal with what this person said, what this person did, and they would ask for my help in processing that. And it was through these experiences and walking with these families that I was like, we as a society are just really crapping out on how we walk with people that are grieving. Um, we just put all these expectations on them and we say all these platitudes that are supposed to make it better because we're trying to fix it. And all it does is cause more damage. So I liken it to someone who's grieving is like a vase that's been shattered and put back together, and it just teeters on the edge of a table. And if we as the people that love and care for them, if we're not careful, we basically just shove them back off the table to shatter again. So we really should be like the helping hands that keep them from falling instead of pushing them back off.
Right. I like that you recognize that. You say, as an outsider, we desperately want to help take the pain
Yeah.
away. And you go on to explain how, "Well, but we don't always do a really good job of that." People are often, like you said, it's empty words. They don't really always help at all. If anything, hurt more. And can you kind of speak to that? Why do you think people are doing that? Are they not immersing themselves in feeling the same way, or are they just really that out of touch? Or I mean, I don't feel like that's what people mean, but I
Right.
know you're the expert.
I think it's honestly, my opinion, it's generational and I don't think it's intentional by any means. If you really like, I mean, we're gonna go way back to like
Okay.
the 1800s here. And when we're as a society, like our personal culture, I'm talking about like in the States, when we started trekking across the West, it was a, you know, kill or be killed kind of situation. Like someone in your family dies as you're dragging your wagon across the West, you just keep pushing on or you're going to die too. Like it was just this concept of if we don't move on, our life is at risk. And I think that that was perpetuated over generations, not necessarily intentionally, but then you go to times like the Great Depression, and that continued to be the case where, and the World War I, World War II, like where we're just like we have to push forward or our life is at risk. But I feel like as a culture now, as a society, our life, like, that's not necessarily the case. So I don't think it was an intentional teaching of how to handle grief. But we've come to a place now where it's kind of like, this isn't really working anymore. And I honestly believe that's why we're seeing such a mental health like awakening, is because we're finally like, I think our generation and the ones coming after us are like, I am tired of keeping this all bottled up. It is like, it's wreaking havoc on me. But we still unintentionally put expectations on someone that is grieving. And I think that's where most of these things come from, is like what I call a fixer epidemic. We want to make it better for everyone. And so we think, well, haven't you spent enough time grieving? Don't you
Mm.
need to move forward? Don't you need to move on? Don't you need to, at least you can have more kids?
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
so many times, Trina, so many times my families have been told that. At least you can have more children. Like, it just,
Wow.
something like that, those at least you can, at least there is, they minimize the grief. And it's saying, well, this is not a big deal because this can happen, or you need to be positive, or you need to look at all of the things that you do have. Well,
Mhm.
in that moment, in the throes of grief, like, they're just sad. They're
Yeah.
just lost. And they can't compare it to what they do have in life because it just is a missing piece of them. So it's just really just trying to encourage everyone to understand that the really the biggest thing that somebody that's grieving needs is for you to say, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to make this better, but I'm here. And to truly be there, to truly be open to listening and hearing what they have to say and helping them process their feelings by just being listening ears and an arm, a shoulder to cry on,
Right.
literally. So,
Have you ever been that third party in the room when you've witnessed someone say something inappropriate to the other person?
oh, absolutely.
How did you handle that? Did you step in or
I mean, it's so hard to, in that moment, step in and say something.
Mhm.
It's more of a like pull that person aside and be like, no.
Yeah.
Because saying something like it already creates an internal tension for the griever, and like saying something calls their tension to the forefront.
True. True.
So now they're exposed and more vulnerable beyond their grief. They're now like struggling with what that person just said. So it's really just about like educating on the sidelines, which
Okay.
is what I'm trying to do with the book, I think, is like,
Right.
hey, come here for a minute. Let me
Yeah.
let me tell
And
you a little bit about.
so who is most your target audience for this book? The people that are facilitating other folks going through the grief, the people that are going through the grief, or a little bit of everybody?
It's really everyone,
Okay.
because we all know someone who's grieving. And of course, my families are a compilation, or my stories are a compilation of, stories from families that I've specifically worked with through my organization, but also families who have lost parents, siblings, spouses who have contributed to this book. And most of them that have read it thus far have said that's so validating for them. So the griever is validated through this book. But
Mhm.
my target audience is everyone, because we all, at some point in our life, are going to encounter someone who's close to us and suffers a loss. And we need to be able to handle them correctly and love them through it correctly. So everybody can read my book.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and like you're saying, if you're privileged enough not to have grief come very close to you, it could also help you prepare because at some point, if you're fortunate enough to live long enough, loss is something that happens to with everyone.
Absolutely. And
So,
really, we don't really acknowledge, I mean, even as children, we go through losses
mhm,
that really impact us. We
mhm,
move away from our friends. We lose our first pet that we were like exceptionally attached
right.
to, even if it's a hamster. Like, I can't count a single adult who doesn't remember that first pet they lost when they had one, like it was traumatic. And we are not taught how to deal with that early on. So it really even then is something to go like, oh, well, nobody wanted to talk to me about it. So now I see why I feel this way.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite part of the book for you personally?
There is there a lot of, I mean, there's a
They're all
lot here.
special. Yeah.
But there's actually a like a little metaphor that I came up with that really just felt like it resonated so deeply for me and my own losses that like we treat grief like it should go away, that it should get easier with time, and it never really does. We just learn to build our life around it. And if you ever grew up on a farm like I did, and you had barbed wire fences everywhere, then sometimes those barbed wire fences would be like next to a little like sapling tree or something. And that tree would continue to grow and the fence would grow into it. Like it would grow around the fence and you would have like these wounds to the tree, but the tree could still be strong and powerful and rooted and get tall. But like you could never remove that barbed wire from the tree because removing the barbed wire would actually cause damage to the tree. And that's what grief is. Like it's still this prickly wound, but we grow around it. We grow our life around it and we, try and we can become tall and strong and have joy and happiness again, but that like you can't pull it away. You can't remove it.
That's deep.
So
I love that. That's really great. I mean, it's something everyone can relate to, I think.
yeah.
I think it's a good visual for kind of what you have to do. You get scarred up and beat up so much in life, and you've got to figure out how to grow around all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you
But
have
it
an
becomes a
excerpt?
part of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have an excerpt you could read, a paragraph or so that you would like to share with us?
Absolutely. If you're okay with it, I would love to read the intro, like the beginning of the first chapter.
Yeah, please.
Because I love the visual. It is like one of those things that it's just kind of like fully embraces my writing style as
Okay.
a storyteller. Give me just one second so I can pull it up for you or for me.
And for people watching, the organization is On Angel's Wings that she is talking about, and you can go find that episode and listen and watch that too.
All right, are you ready?
Yes, let's hear it.
Okay. I stood in the stark white corridor lined with indistinguishable doors. I was silent at first, an outsider among a family gripped with a host of mixed emotions. A few weeks prior, in late summer of 2008, I was in a local coffee house with the couple now on the cusp of debilitating heartbreak. They told me how their unborn child, a daughter, had a diagnosis of anencephaly, a defect where a child develops in the womb without a major portion of its brain, skull, and scalp. She was not expected to survive for long after birth, if at all. They reached out to me through a bereavement photography service and requested I come take pictures for them immediately following their daughter's birth. We discussed over coffee what things we could plan for during those precious moments, and the mood was somber but hopeful. So there I was a few weeks later, waiting with their family in that hospital corridor as mom labored behind closed doors. There was silence among us for a while, but eventually we spoke. I learned that grandma and great grandma also lost infants. Great grandma reflected how no one spoke of the child she lost, that hospital staff simply took the baby away as if it never happened. Grandma reminisced about holding her child but leaving with nothing to show for that child's existence. And after only ever speaking or acknowledging that life with the most intimate of immediate family. Neither of them had pictures of their children gone too soon, yet here I was waiting to capture their grandchild's only moments. They were grateful, and I felt honored. 4 hours later, sweet Bethany, named by her parents for the biblical city where Lazarus arose from the dead, was born. I was the first person allowed in the room after her birth so that I could capture pictures of Bethany with her parents alone. She passed during delivery, already gone when I first got to see her precious face and little fingers and toes. The most powerful and make you sob moment was when her daddy pulled out a portable radio, nestled her sweet face in his chest, and danced with her to Stephen Curtis Chapman's Cinderella. Tears streamed down Dad's cheeks, and the whole world seemed in slow motion as he lovingly told his daughter goodbye. The image I took of that moment will be forever seared in my mind because of the power and depth of emotion it holds. It was in the stillness of those intimate moments with this family in their time of greatest loss that a forever bond was forged and a passion welded to my heart to support families in this time of need. That passion and vision grew over the years. In 2013, I started a nonprofit organization, On Angel's Wings, to provide free photographs and support for families who have a medically fragile child or who suffer the loss of a child at birth. Through this organization, I walk daily with families in the throes of grief. I'm going to skip just a little bit
Sure.
because there's a lot here and I don't want to take up a whole bunch of time. I've since come to a place where grief is a part of my daily life, connected to every strand. Doing bereavement photography for nearly 15 years and helping to carry the grief of our recipients, walking them through every difficult step, holding up some of my closest friends as their hearts explode at the loss of their child. I've learned that I've always been capable of bearing the weight of it. The issue has never been whether or not I could handle it. It's been whether or not those on the outside found the process of my own grief befitting to their parameters of an acceptable response. People feel uncomfortable when someone is next to them deep in the ravages of grief. They feel obligated to say something, to do something to make it better, and also are completely insignificant in the ability to do so. It becomes a burden few can bear, and it manifests itself in a myriad of ways, like saying something in an effort to cut the tension, a plea for the one grieving to move on, to hurry up and get over it, and presumptions as to the purpose or bigger picture of the loss. Most of the time, these things unintentionally escalate the grief response, doing more emotional harm than good. To have the opportunity to grieve the way you need to, sometimes you have to just shut yourself up in your room alone, turn off the lights, blast some music, hit your knees, and sob out all the hurt and sorrow you've been holding on to so tightly because you're afraid to let anyone see. Afraid they won't be able to handle the burden you carry every moment of every day. Afraid of what they might say or do to make it worse.
Oh my goodness. Such a great introduction to what you'll get to read in the entire book. Are you planning on writing more books in the future?
Well, yes, but I actually have some fiction stuff in the works.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell a little bit about what it's going to?
Yeah, one project that I'm working on is actually in conjunction with my son. He is almost 12. He is a very, very talented artist. And so we are working on a children's book together where I will write it and he will illustrate it.
I love it. I love it. Well, if you need a narrator, hit me up. I'll be willing to do that. Okay, we are looking forward to more from you. I hope you will come back when the fiction book is ready
Of
and
course,
tell me more anytime. Tell folks where they can go to get this and anything else they need to know.
Unshattered Grief is on Amazon. You can currently get it Kindle and paperback, and I have the audiobook is in process.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Trina.